Well, we've talked frequently about partial floats. You've got the model of Air New Zealand, which it's accidental in a sense because the government had to bail them out, but it shows the benefits of market scrutiny of what it does, the need every day for the management to perform.
Okay, well let's get back to the direct question. Sorry to interrupt you there, but the direct question, are there any that should be sold? Should the government own a weather forecasting company, a logging company, an airline? Why should the government own those things?
Well, we don't think there's any that should be sold holus bolus.
Well, why not?
We haven't got a list of those.
What has changed? Because right up until your very last year in office in 1999, you were selling airports, you sold contact energy. What has changed? I mean, it's hard not to believe that you've just sacrificed your ideology for political acceptability on asset sales.
Well, if the nation says we want to retain control of these state assets, then we can't expect to be a government and say we're going to go and head off in the opposite direction. I think National has accepted that, as we've accepted with other policies.
Well, that's very interesting.
So it's
the public opinion which has shifted your thinking, because National's ideology would be that the private sector can do it better. That why would the state want to own a logging company and weather forecaster? That would be the National ideology, wouldn't it? And you're saying that because it's politically expedient, we're not going to do that now.
Well, I think it's just that National's a bit less ideological about it. I mean, the fact is that over the last 8 years, National hasn't been able to sell any assets at all. It hasn't been able to partially float. It hasn't been able to improve the performance of our state-owned enterprises because it hasn't been in government. We're quite relaxed about a mixed model. We think it's working in the cases where it's happened, such as Air New Zealand, and we think furthermore with KiwiSaver there's going to be demand from Kiwi mums and dads for some good opportunities to invest.
Could I ask you to elaborate on your own policy there then? Which assets should have some partial floats? Would you sell down some more of Air New Zealand? Would you introduce partial private ownership to other assets? And what are they?
Well, we haven't got a list, quite honestly, Guy. We just don't have a list of assets where we've got a confirmed policy. But the general principle of partial sell downs, particularly focused on the demand from KiwiSaver accounts for good investment, because in the end KiwiSaver is not about the government subsidy, it's about good investment opportunities, and that's a direction we will talk more about over the next 18 months.
What about the electricity companies? I mean, they're big assets. What about giving Kiwi mums and dads a shot at owning some shares in those?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't exclude any. Clearly those kind of assets are very topical at the moment. Some of them are running very well. They're making substantial profits for government, which get spent on health and education. So if you sell down, the government's not going to get those profits. But yeah, we'd look at partial floats of those.